Welcome everybody to the first annual Sega Timber. What do you mean it's October? Okay, so I'm a little late on this, but I've wanted to do this theme month for so long. I just love Sega. Despite being a Nintendo kid, I just love everything they do except, neglecting their franchises like everything other than Sonic, Yakuza, Puyo Puyo, and I guess Hatsumika? Are they still making games? And what better way to start this off than talking about their commercials, the things that made them the infamous company they are today. Also, this will be the only video for this month because, again, it's not really September anymore. And I got other things to do this year, so consider this a sneak peek for next year. Probably.
If you're new to the idea of marketing and commercials, you may want to get off this platform, my little younglings. But I'll entertain you for a moment. Marketing is the most important way to sell your product, whether it's in the form of a commercial on TV, an advert on YouTube, or seeing a billboard on the highway. Wherever you look, you can't escape the power of commercialism. It's a forgotten art nowadays, unfortunately. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, advertisements were more than just selling a product. It was a way of entertainment even of itself. Toy commercials were the most popular example, and of course that leads into video games. But in order to tell you what made commercials so great back in the day, we'll discuss one of the most powerful artists in this field, Nintendo.
That was for a Mario game.
Nah, we're talking about Sega commercials today, back when service games actually developed their own consoles at the time. Now I say that and there's not much to say before the Genesis Mega Drive era. Master System commercials were merely copying what everyone else was doing. Just filming a couple of people in front of a CRT and hoping people will care enough to buy the damn thing. But their infamy doesn't start until their successor. Discover Genesis and your world will never be the same. Will be the first time we see Sega's commercial campaign for the Genesis. It's remarkably similar to Apple's most infamous commercial in the day, taking a stab at their biggest rival Nintendo and their beloved NES. The poor kids are even playing Mario 3 on the television screen. But instead of a brave soul javeling the big screen, a glowing hole surfaces with a kid going over to play the not-so-suspicious idol. Bold start. But this doesn't do much to sell what made the Genesis worth the $30 price tag at the time. Later on, they also made a couple more commercials detailing that the Genesis was a makeshift arcade system for your living room, which did a better job. Why go over to an arcade when you can just buy the system and a few games? Or just go over to your neighbor's house to play some Golden Axe. I guess it's less of a walk. Though if you look at the comparisons, you can see some differences. But they were essentially the same game, so it wasn't much of a deal breaker. Even Tommy Lasorda will play a Genesis game while we're going to his actual baseball games. Commercials starring Ghostbusters, Ghouls and Ghosts, Shinobi, Super Monaco GP, and Strider came out after that. But then, they made commercials that are gelled into the minds of gamers to this very day.
Genesis does.
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does.
Ah, that's nice. The Genesis Does campaigns made a huge splash. This was not only a way to slander Nintendo's inferior product, this was a big way to show off their impressive library of Sega mascots. They were heavily trying to make the likes of Mickey Mouse and Michael Jackson video game icons at the time, and it's not to say they failed. On the contrary, the games were pretty good in their own right, and this gave Sega an edge in the marketing for a while. It may sound like a bunch of egotistical slander for the sake of getting ahead in the market for once. It was, but it all worked out in the end. Sega was leading in sales around this time, thanks to these advertisements. You have a console that can not only play near-perfect versions of arcade titles, but you can play exclusive content that were both conceptually unheard of and incredibly innovative. And this was more evident with their new face coming out at the time.
Yo, he goes slow. He ain't no fool with that sonic speed. He just always cool.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Who forgot this was a thing? This was the 90s. If you didn't have a wrap for your product, you weren't really getting out of the door. Even Mario did this for their new TV show at the time. Good God, that sucked. Anyway, Sonic the Hedgehog was about to make its rounds. And this is important for several reasons. The obvious being that Sonic was their mascot replacement, burying the previous mascot Alex Kidd until 2021 for a remake. It's also worth noting that the new American CEO, Michael Katz, told Sega Japan to bundle Sonic the Hedgehog with the Genesis and lower the price for the console to improve sales. I'm not going to go into all the details, but if you want to learn more, here's a Saber Spark video to satiate your appetite. Well, that sounds good right about now. back on topic. But what was their first commercial for the Blue Hedgehog outside of that rap you saw earlier? Ugh.
Danita Stokes, president of HAG.
A commercial featuring this bitch. This was the second and last time they ever used this idea, probably because it was a little on the nose with its message. They straight up called them HAG instead of the actual names, so I feel like they pulled the idea after realizing it was going a little too far.
They say he's incredibly fast. Well, what's the hurry, mister?
He's trying to save the world from an evil scientist. Of course he's gonna go fast.
And about his attitude. Smarty pants!
Was that really your best response? Good grief. Thankfully, they tried something new next time. The smear campaigns. Starting with the Super Mario World commercial. With the salesman trying to sell Super Mario World, even if the customer wants a nearby Sega Genesis with Sonic 1. I always question why he only had 2 TVs and 2 different consoles, and why he has them both side by side, even if he's clearly biased in the sale. Be like the other retailers and hide the damn thing, you idiots. At least keep them on the other side of the aisles. Also, I hardly believe that the kid was sold by Sonic the Hedgehog by looking at Marble Zone footage. You don't sell a product like that. Why not show off Green Hill Zone? That would have been more convincing. Well, it was the new thing at the time, and it was a successful ad, with Sonic continuing to be their big seller. From the multitude of Sonic 2 commercials, labeling the release date as Sonic Tuesday, since it fell on a Tuesday, to the Sonic Mania commercial. No, not that Sonic Mania. November 23rd, 1993. Man, that game really was a nostalgia grab, wasn't it? Of course they had other games to show off, some coming from their new Gotta Get Genesis commercials, from the likes of Toe Jam Earl, Streets of Rage, and Joe Montana 2. Whatever that was. They even made a game out of 7-Up. Yeah, you heard me right, this radical chickenpox. That was certainly a trend with the Genesis in general, pure 90s radicalness. Kid Chameleon was probably the worst of it, seeing a kid get crazy over a game at a friend's house and his family just ignoring the mania. His mother even straight up calls it an identity crisis. Welcome to the frickin' 90s. Actually, that's not a bad segue.
Welcome to the
Certainly their most prominent slogan. The commercials had a specific theme to them. Rather than being straightforward with the editing, many of these commercials started off with a standard shot slowly morphing into madness. The best example is the commercial before Sega, after Sega. Starting off with a kid watching television before Sega was around, but then the screen gets scrambled with footage of existing games, random explosions, and one bloke getting confused by the chaos.
What the heck was that?
Not all of them felt like Tasmania's commercial.
City, careful there. Ha! Or it'll toast your eyeball.
What the fuck? Take the Streets of Rage commercial, showing a nerd getting bullied by his classmates and playing the game after school, turning him into a total jerk himself. I'm pretty sure this kind of attitude would bully you even more. Speaking of unreasonable, Echo the Dolphin. A group of sailors are enamored by a game about a rapist of the sea, and the captain just refuses to tell them to get back to work because he's such a nice guy like that. Seriously, get your people on the wheel before you hit an iceberg. But of course, the commercial you've all been waiting for. In order to show off the power of the Genesis compared to the Super Nintendo, they hook up each of the consoles and televisions to their respective cars. I wonder if there's a bias in this comparison, showing off the speed of the console's processors, hence blast processing. It's a fun commercial, ignoring the hectic editing, and it's certainly one of the more memorable commercials out there for a reason. Last one out of these commercials worth noting anyway, is the Aladdin game on Genesis, where a boy finds a genie and asks for a copy of the game. I would have probably asked for world peace or at the very least a PlayStation 5 pre-order, but this game wants a video game that'll last them about 2 hours and nothing more. You'll get more out of asking for 2 coats and some chips. Game Gear! Yeah, I didn't know how to transition to that. There is a Game Gear commercial in this collection in the beginning of the line, but it's better to slap it with the non-Genesis commercials, before the astronomical disaster yet to come. And what a way to start, because the Game Gear commercials were a tad insulting. This one basically compares you to a freaking dog, which, I mean, they are good boys, don't get me wrong, but they don't care about video games, they just care about food and attention. Nintendo had a chokehold on the handheld market, so why not make a better handheld than what they were offering? Their first commercial was yet another parody of Apple. In a dark room of teens buying Game Boys from a fusion dance of Jerry Seinfeld and Willem Dafoe, when some teen crashes in with a colored handheld system, the Game Gear, in all its bulky glory. Oh, the Game Boy doesn't have color. Just grab a dead squirrel and give yourself a concussion. Or spend more money on a Game Gear with its 3-hour-long battery life requiring 6 AA batteries. No, I'm not joking. But that's not what we're talking about. Not much to say with these commercials. They're serviceable. The Sonic 2 games were bundled together for some reason, even though they're completely different games. And the last commercial is a tad disturbing.
Where were they going with that?
Moving on to the Sega CD and 32X, aka the downfall of Sega. Now, the Sega CD commercials started out similar to the Welcome to the Next Level line of advertisements, just with more sex and murder on the screen. A machine that makes FMV games is what the first few commercials showed the public with games like Night Trap and Sewer Shark. The one recurring theme in the ads was this guy verbally abusing the couch potatoes into getting a proto-DVD player. Seriously, this dude is hostile. It's almost like having a Bronx neighborhood in your CRT. I'm pretty sure while the watcher was playing prize fighters, he freaking socked him in the head just to create a sick illusion. What an asshole. The 32X wasn't any better, really. In fact, remember when I briefly joked about sex a little bit ago? Well...
Alright, baby.
Now, the TV commercials aren't really worth the time, but this is where we go into the world of magazines. And I have no idea what magazine would have these kind of ads outside of those perverts in France. Mommy, what are those two Sega machines doing? My god, this is ridiculous. Not to say that the 32X was alone in these disgusting ads. The Sega CD and Game Gear had their share of the perverse. Please do not flag this video. I don't want to see these any more than you do. Also, the joke about this 32X having sex with the Genesis isn't really that crazy. If you had the right mind, every Genesis cartridge had their fair share with the Genesis. That electronic whore. I get that Sega is supposed to be the more edgy version of Nintendo, but I feel like most of these ads get absurd. I don't mind if my boyfriend plays with himself. Later. This is an ad for Panther Dragoon. What the actual hell?
I think it's time we move on. I'm gonna need a little bit of a cleanser after that.
Why don't we segue to the Sega Saturn? The company's atomic bomb is...
You are approaching Saturn. You are only seconds away.
From death.
What the hell did I just watch? First I see a woman straight out of Silent Hill's backyard, then Maui Handel's disembodied head talking about the end of the world, and finally seeing this homeless dude dancing like a complete imbecile around a television. If you thought that was weird though, we zoom into an eye where the Ku Klux Klan and off-brand train conductors in a movie theater going insane over Panther Dragoon and Daytona. Also, I thought this was Maurice LaMarche as a brain. It's most likely it wasn't, but hot damn, that would have been perfect casting. Outside of that, what the hell is this? This was basically my entire brain watching this commercial, and they made 3 of them! The last of which is even more insane. This is not your brain on Sega Saturn, this is your brain on crack cocaine. What else could they do to scar the 90s kid for life?
Hey, that's Valkyrie. Did he design the games? No, he executed.
Not sure where they're going with this. I see what they did there. What the hell was that?
I can't even describe this. I really can't. From the cosmic floating heads of Satan's right-hand men, to the KKK combusting your brain with monkey sounds, to a racer getting his eyes sucked out of his skull fingering his ignition.
Yeah, that's just revolting. I can't even think about what they did overseas. Considering how wacky Japan gets, I have to think that's just a match made.
野球しようぜ。
オッケー。
行こう行こう。お前ら今日はやったよ。
任しとけ。
セガと三四郎。止め。ほら。
Hell, we got gypped.
How the bloody hell did Japan get not only the tamer commercials, but also get the more straightforward and amusing? I can tell you right now, I wish we got these masterpieces instead of whatever crack cocaine-induced nightmares these turned out to be. Instead of seeing a dancing Double D, we would have gotten to see Sega go to a club and destroy all the teens, forcing them to play Sega Saturn. Instead of watching my brain during a typical day of work, we could have gotten to see this heavy maniac throwing a young soccer player. Instead of seeing this woman simultaneously terrifying you and possibly making you horny, you could have had the chance to see this brawny brake breaker stop a missile from destroying the Sega HQ, moving it towards the sky, sacrificing himself for the launch of their new system. This man is a treasure not only for Sega or Japan, but also for the world. And it seems like the commercials helped sell the Saturn in Japan, since it was more successful over there. And America really couldn't get this thing going by comparison. It may have also been their surprise launch, but hey, Sega was full of spider webs and potholes at that time. I'd argue they still are, actually.
Did Americans really want to eat a Saturn?
Well, with the Saturn being a worldwide disaster in more ways than one, the next console has got to be a catastrophe. It was. Look, we all love the Dreamcast, and it wasn't known for being the saving grace of the company. And the first commercials were a big message of that, showing out that the Dreamcast was a living, breathing machine, and a Matrix-like spy thriller-esque runaway, escaping with the Dreamcast containing every video game character living in the system, with Sonic hanging on to see the action, then falling to his gruesome death. If frickin' only. Actually, most of the commercials post-launch showed off this Dreamcast community, with Joe from Crazy Taxi getting shit-talked by the DMV, Sonic going haywire on a turntable, to the NHL harassing a boy about his hockey skills, then flirting with his mother after dropping the phone. These were brilliant commercials, and they helped the Dreamcast grow during the first couple of years. Then the PS2 and Xbox came out, basically showing Sega up and forcing them out of the console business. Sega was so close to turning things around, but the competition was just more powerful, even with the strong marketing and the impressive hardware. After the loss of the Dreamcast, the great commercials seemed to stop. They did exist, but they really did slow down since they went third party, which sucks. If you ask me, Sega was the king of marketing back in the day. Sure, they weren't all great, some of them were pretty weird, and some went off the frickin' wall. But that's what kinda made them great to begin with. At the end of the day, I wish we still had this Sega. The Sega that got ruthless. The Sega that could get risque and goofy. The Sega that had the passion for not only video games, but for the people that made and played them. Yeah, they're getting better with their properties, and they haven't gone to the dark side quite yet. But it's not the same Sega, and I don't think it'll ever be the same. A part of me wishes I could have grown up on what Sega offered, even though I enjoyed my time with the PlayStation, the Xbox, and the Super Nintendo and N64. Sega had a strong hand, but it was easy to see just how shaky that hand was as well. The Genesis and Dreamcast showed that they had the ability to become a juggernaut, and the games back then and during the 6th generation showed they had a library rivaling everyone in the industry. And I hope that the company can achieve that level of quality again, and to also bring back the type of commercials that brought them infamy in the first place.
Well, we'll see what happens in the future. I mean, they're still doing okay with their current franchises, but I'd like them to bring back their older franchises, like Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi. They're not gonna do it.
Yeah, I'm here for my license.
Get behind that yellow line!
Yeah, I know. License, please.
You better get out of my face! And I gotta get your punk license
Yeah,
back!
I
Look what I
know.
got on you! You drive through the mall, the subway, city park, you like a direct.
That was some big air.
What's your problem?
Hey, that's what I get paid for. I made some serious cake that day.